Last week we dove into inventory, and this week I am back in the kitchen for the first week of the 2025 Pantry Challenge. Some of the recipes that I'm going to share with you today are focusing on saving time, while others are focused on saving money, all while providing the highest quality foods that I can for my very busy family at the lowest prices possible. The first recipe that I'm going to share with you in this year's challenge is a family favorite of mine, which is a semi-boneless spatchcock chicken. This is slightly different than a normal spatchcock chicken if you are familiar with what that looks like. Often you will see people just take kitchen scissors and chop down both sides of the backbone and pull it out and then press down on the rib cage to expand that and kind of break some of those bones so it cooks a little more flat. I am going to show you how to take your kitchen knife and slide it down both sides of the rib cage and pull out the entire rib cage as well as the backbone in one piece. We're going to put that in the freezer and save it for later to make some delicious chicken broth or chicken noodle soup, which we probably need around here this year. I've got quite a few with that nasty little cough that's going around. So that's something you're going to be seeing in the weeks coming forward. But once you get the knife all the way down both sides of the rib cage, it is really easy to just cut right under the whole piece, pull it out, throw it in a Ziploc, and put it directly in the freezer. What that does, it allows you to lay this super flat. It gets all of the skin really crispy on the bottom when you brown it off in a cast iron skillet, which is where we're starting. This is my huge cast iron skillet, of course, to put a full chicken in there, but it really makes this job a lot easier. Now I'm using a big fish turner to turn this, and I did in the process somehow get that leg pulled loose. But using that fish turner really makes it very simple to get in. Now you're going to cook this to 165, and because it is flat, it cooks about 25% faster than a traditional roasted chicken, which is a huge win at our house. I don't often get things started in the same amount of time that I would like to. So this just gives me a little step ahead, plus ensures that we get more juicy and less dried out breast meat because it cooks so fast. Now, to go along with it as a side, I'm just roasting up some vegetables. You could put any that you have in here. I've often done broccoli and cauliflower and anything that is available, sometimes cabbage, but I'm saving a couple heads of cabbage for a meal that I'm actually going to show you on next week's episode that we've already eaten. Absolutely delicious, so make sure you stick around for that. But today we're just roasting up potatoes, onions, and whole cloves of garlic. Now, I know some might think that would be a strong flavor to have the whole cloves of garlic in there, but my kids actually fight for them. I think I could roast 2 or 3 times as much every single time, and they would totally go for it. The flavor of roasted garlic is absolutely delicious, and it makes a really great addition to this bowl. So everything into a bowl, adding an oil of your choice to it. Then we're doing salt and pepper. If you would like to add some additional seasoning blends in there, you definitely can. But we like to keep it really simple and just let the flavors of the roasted vegetables shine through. Now, once you have them all tossed, you want to put them onto the sheet pan. I was trying to get all of this on one, but the really important thing here is to make sure everything is in a single layer, and that just wasn't quite going to work with the sheet pan that I had out there. So split it off into 2, and this will ensure that everything cooks a little faster. If you do end up stacking them or having a double layer, you just won't get that even crispness all over. So for my crew and their love of the nice crunchy edge and the really creamy center that comes along with these potatoes, we definitely make sure to go ahead and use the extra tray when needed. I actually had 3 of these and ended up breaking one. So that's another story for another day. But I will say that you will see those pans in action quite a bit here in our kitchen. They are an absolute workhorse at our house. Now take a look at this chicken. I did get a notification on my phone that the time was up and that it had reached 165. So pulling it out and just kind of rearranging here. I moved those potatoes up a notch so they could get a little bit more even heat. My oven, while I love it, is all gas, meaning that the heat actually comes on and off instead of an electric, which could just give a consistent temperature. So I like to move them up a little bit higher just so they're not getting roasted when those elements come on right below them. Now, as you can see here, the spatchcock chicken is super easy to take apart. You already have all the bones out, so you just have to run your knife through the joints and it comes apart really, really beautifully. Then I add the potatoes to every single plate and get it portioned out to where all the kiddos can come in and grab the plate of their choosing, and we can all sit down at the exact same time. Now, last week when I found these chickens in the bottom of my freezer, I was also finding a ton of tomatoes. I'm sure you probably remember if you saw that video of my inventory, and if you haven't, go check it out. I was able to get those tomatoes into jars and out of the freezer. So now my 2024 garden is a complete wrap, which means it's time to start the one for 2025. This will be our 4th year having a garden here at my home. And every year I promise myself that I'm going to get my onions started in January. And I never do. But this year is the year of change. I'm going to bring you along as I start my onion seeds. Now, if you're new to gardening, you might think seed starting in January is a little bit wild, and it kind of is. It was hard to wrap my brain around at first, but I want to show you the tricks and tools that are making it super easy for me today and tell you how you can win it here at the end. This is the Vego Plant and Pop Seed Starting Bundle. I filled up a 10 by 20 stackable seedling tray, and I'm using the Plant and Pop board to press all of the holes to give the exact correct spacing for my seeds in each of these individual cells. It's an air pruning tray, so your seeds are going to be strong and your starts are not going to be root bound. And when you put this board right back in place, I will show you the amazing part that comes along with starting the seeds. You can just drop your seed into all of these little holes, which completely covers the soil from your other rows, meaning you're not going to accidentally get that seed in the wrong spot. Once I planted out all of the cells that I was going to use today, I went ahead and covered with some soil just by throwing it on top and sliding my hand around to smooth it over, making sure to not compact that soil too much. And then I gave it a gentle water. But that's not where the really cool innovation ends with this Plant and Pop bundle. If there's one thing that I've learned from my time working with Vego, is that they are doing everything they can to innovate and make gardening easier. Anytime, anywhere. And this is a perfect example. That exact same tray that you use to make your holes and plant your seeds actually is allowed to go right in the bottom of this tray, and then it will pop all of your starts straight up so you can easily transplant them either into larger cells or directly out into the garden. It is so cool when you see this in action. But the Plant and Pop is not the only innovation that Vego has been working on this year. Let me introduce you to the second option of a giveaway, which is the Seed Starting Bundle. Now, this new set is super cool. The trays actually have a middle square cut out that allows drip irrigation to come straight from this very unique design lid and gently drip right into the center, channeling itself toward those seed starts. This allows for even gentle watering and is just what the plants need to get started. All of the Vego products are built to last with a super strong plastic that is going to last many years to come. So, are you interested in winning? You can actually pick one of these 2 sets thanks to our friends at Vego. To win, you need to be a subscriber of my channel and also to Vego Garden Academy here on YouTube. I'll make sure to put that down in the description. You need to like this video and comment with your favorite gardening tip or how you'd use the seedling tray. A winner will be announced on January 19th. No purchase is necessary to win, and YouTube is not a sponsor of this giveaway in any way. You must be 18 or older to enter and have a United States mailing address. Before we get back to the cooking, I just want to thank our friends at Vego for sponsoring this awesome giveaway and today's content, and for making gardening easier anytime and anywhere. Now, are you curious about what I'm making here? I know I've been giving you a lot of details, but I wanted to make sure everybody could get involved. And as a result, we've run straight into the next recipe. I'm making homemade hamburger buns. Now, last year I set out with the goal of buying 0 store-bought bread, and I'm going to admit I failed. So here we are at the start of 2025, and I'm going to give it a go again. The reason that it's really important to me to make my own bread is twofold. One, there are huge health benefits to using freshly milled wheat. And I really got into this a couple years ago and have kind of just done what you do. Sometimes you just space things off and think, you know what, it'll really be fine if we just buy store-bought bread. It will, but there are reasons and major health advantages to freshly milling your own wheat. And recently I was reminded of that and have decided that is still a priority for me and my family, and I want to get back into it. The second reason that I'm headed back to making my own bread products is because of the cost. I went to Walmart.com, checked out the prices, and I can save 62% by making these at home. Now, I know when we're talking about the difference between $3 and $1.14, you're probably thinking like, Is it worth it? Is the time worth it? But for me, the answer is yes. When you make change after change to save 50 or 60% along the way, those dollars really add up and take a huge chunk out of a family budget. And when you have 5 little ones at home like we do and a growing family, for sure, you want to make sure you can save where you can. And also, like I mentioned before, I can control the ingredients. Not only am I using freshly milled wheat, but I'm also making sure there are 0 preservatives or anything that I can't pronounce in what I'm feeding my kiddos. If you are interested in learning more on freshly milled wheat and why I think it's so important for my family, I will make sure to link a podcast down below that I recently listened to from Lisa at Farmhouse on Boone and Sue Becker, who is like the godmother of all things freshly milled. It's a really great listen and will really help you to understand if this might be right for your family and what the advantages can be along the way. As you can see, my little ones love the look of what's going on. They absolutely love hamburgers. The little lady that you were seeing there, her favorite meal of all time and what she eats anytime we go anywhere is a hamburger. So this was a huge hit for them. Now, once I got the buns in the oven, I started on the hamburgers. Now, I'm going to share something with you that I have never shared here on my channel, but some of you have probably noticed or could extrapolate on your own. I'm a little bit of a control freak. This is true specifically when it comes to things like frying foods in my house. Now, as I mentioned just a minute ago, my kiddos love burgers. Of course, I am no exception to that rule. I like a nice hamburger as well. So what I do to cut down on the mess is I make them in my air fryer. So I have 3 pounds of ground beef here. I am just portioning them out in about 1/4 pound patties. And then I'm putting them straight on the racks to go in my air fryer. While I was in the process of making those patties, my buns got a touch more done than I was interested in for my liking. Although I will say, I thought they were going to turn out kind of crunchy. So I put some butter on top to keep them really soft. There was nothing crunchy about these at all. They were delicious. And you can see the butter right there. That white portion actually just rubs in and goes away. So nothing that you'll see here later when I'm actually going to cut them. But these buns were juicy and delicious. Now, while I had all of that going on, I started to heat up the air fryer. I like to give it about 5 minutes to get nice and hot in there before I put the burgers in. This just helps with a really even cook. If you haven't ever made hamburgers in an air fryer, I highly recommend it. But do make sure there is a tray or something underneath the food to catch the grease because there will be quite a bit dripping down. That's the reason that I love it so much. It contains all of the grease in one location. That's exactly why I do the bacon in the oven too. So now you know my secret, a little bit of a control freak, but I'm sure that wasn't very hard to guess. Now, while all the burgers are cooking, I also have fries in the oven. As you saw earlier, I pulled those out of the downstairs freezer because I found those on our inventory last week, and the kids love nothing more with a burger than a nice side of fries. Now, let's cut those buns open and see what they look like. Now, I only do have 4 out here. The reason is not all of my kiddos like to eat a bun, but also these turned out huge. If I make this recipe again, I will make sure to turn this into 12 buns instead of 8 and make them that perfect little slider size. These were so big. They were absolutely delicious. The kids all loved them, but they were huge. So we ended up smashing them because of the way that they rose so tall. And I will definitely make them again. But like I said, we will do 12 instead of 8 next time, just to make sure that we have the perfect size for the buns that we need. The other 4 went straight to the freezer after they cooled. That way, the next time we want either burgers or something else that needs a bun, I will have those ready to go and won't have to go to the work to make them. Now we have everything complete, all the toppings set out, and the burgers are done. I do just want to drop a quick note here. I make sure to go ahead and temp every single burger to make sure it reaches a safe temperature on the inside. Anytime I'm working with ground meat, I want to make sure that what I'm giving my family is safe, although we are not fans of super well done meat. So to make sure that you reach the sweet spot, make sure to use an instant read thermometer. As I mentioned before, this kitchen is a high traffic area. You can see everybody coming in and going out, but those burgers turned out absolutely delicious. There were 0 complaints, and we will definitely be making that recipe again with the small modifications that I mentioned earlier. One of the interesting things about a pantry challenge is I'm not only inviting you along for recipes that I know will be huge hits, but I'm also inviting you along for a little trial and error behind the scenes content that you wouldn't normally see here at the house. Today, I'm testing out not only a new recipe, but I'm seeing just how much I can put into this Anchorsham mixer. Now, I've had this thing for a couple years, and I know the capacity is really high, much higher than the old KitchenAid that I had been around for 30 some years. But today I'm taking it to a new level. I'm making 4 loaves of bread at the same time. Now, I went ahead and put all of my wet ingredients in, plus the flour that I needed, and let it set. I did not put the yeast in at this point, so I was able to let it set for about an hour and a half while I took my little one up and got her put down for her nap, as well as took a little break myself. Once that was done, I decided to switch out and try the dough hook because I wasn't sure with the amount of dough that I had in there that the roller and scraper would be up for the task. This was a total mistake. I should have stuck with what brought me because it mixed the dough just fine in the beginning, so it would have proceeded just fine as well. But what I did here was switch over to the dough hook, and I gave it about 15 minutes of mixing and just wasn't getting the result that I was looking for. Now, I forgot to mention I didn't add the yeast earlier, so when I took that long break, there was no action going in my dough. The reason I wait on that is because I do have the flexibility, especially with all the kiddos and activities and running somebody to ball or meeting up with friends. It just gives me the option to get something started and not really have to be super hands-on at that moment. So now that I'm back to it and letting it mix after my delay, I can go ahead and add that yeast in at this point. The bread that I am making is not our main course for dinner tonight. It's actually not even on the menu. What we're having is some pizza. And these are crusts that I had made previously and froze. I did make this specific batch before I realized that doubling the yeast is super important if it's something that's going to go in the freezer. So you will see in the end, these did not rise up like the normal crust that I make. Although I do have some kids that like a thinner crust pizza, so it turned out just fine. Still very delicious, and everybody ate it all up, but it did not turn out just the way I wanted. So I wanted to let you guys know, if you are going to freeze something that has a yeast in it, make sure to give it some extra so that when it does come out of that cold state, it will come back to life and give you the nice springy, cushy dough that you're looking for. Another possible solution is to put it in a proofer to try to warm it up quite a bit. And this dough went from the freezer to the refrigerator and was still pretty cold in the center. So that would definitely impact the rise time as well. But as I mentioned before, it turned out really delicious nonetheless. Once I got it pressed out just slightly and gave it some time to relax, I headed back in to check on the dough. And as you can see here, it's just still really, really shaggy, kind of in a big glob, and it's not coming together like it should for being in there around 15 or 16 minutes. That is one of the advantages of this mixer, is that it does have a 12-minute timer on it, but I did reset it in the middle. So we're right around minute 16, and it's just not what I'm looking for. So I decided to pull out the hook and go back to my trusty roller and scraper. The reason that the roller is so advantageous when making bread is that the action of the roller against the side of the bowl is to mimic hand kneading. So this really helps in the gluten development and really gives you that nice, pillowy, super soft bread, which is what we're looking for. It's also one of the things that is really hard to achieve with a freshly milled wheat. So this dough is also enriched with butter, milk, and eggs to give that extra bounce and softness that you're looking for when you have a nice slice of sandwich bread. Now, once I cranked this up and gave it about 5 minutes, I was amazed with how far it had come along when I came back to check it. Now, the way that you check it is just to reach in and grab a big chunk of that dough out and see if you can pull it thin enough to where you can see through it without it breaking. That's what's called a window pane test. And you will see right here that we are going to get there with this dough. Now, when you're using a freshly milled wheat, you can kind of see all the German bran are a little bit speckled in the dough itself. It's not quite as smooth and silky as a dough would be with an all-purpose flour. That's okay, and that's fine. You're just looking to achieve that window pane to make sure that the gluten development is there before moving on to next steps. Now, once you get there, you need to let this dough rest for about an hour or until doubled in size. My typical play here is just to put the lid right on the mixing bowl and leave it in there. But because this is 4 loaves and not 2, which is the size I would normally make, I knew that that dough would go ahead and rise right on out of that bowl, so I had to portion half of it off. Jumping back into the pizza while the dough is resting, we went ahead and got them put together. One is going to be a regular pizza. It's actually pig and bull. If you notice right there in my cast iron skillet, I warmed up a little bit of the hamburger I had left over from the night before when we did burgers and mixed in some frozen sausage that I had pre-cooked before. I love to pre-cook things like that because then when I need it for something like this or even for a breakfast scramble, I can just pull out some of that sausage that's already been cooked and throw it right into my dish without having to go to the trouble to thaw it and cook it right at the time that I need it. It's usually just an extra ingredient for us, so having it available in the freezer makes a huge difference for us. The next things that we're adding are going to be banana peppers and just all of the other ingredients that my kids love on pizzas. We lean toward supreme or meat lovers, something of that kind. So he's topping it to his liking. And then my little one here is, well, I'll admit she's mad at us. She is mad that she didn't get called in to help. She likes to get involved in all the ingredients and make a great big mess. So she is a little testy with the fact that she's coming in right at the end. But she does love the olives. So when she saw brother back there finishing off the olives, she decided she didn't need to freeze her hands off with frozen mozzarella and she'd go back and hang out with him. Now, I often have people ask in the comments why I'm never talking live on camera or even looking at the camera and pretending like it's here. And I can tell you, it's because you don't want to hear what's going on. We have such a busy family that if I waited to record until it was quiet enough for me to talk to the camera, there would never be a thing recorded in our house. It's just too much going on. And this allows you a fly on the wall perspective to see what it's really like in a busy kitchen with all that's going on with the little ones. I hope you enjoy it here, and I hope you'll come back and explore the rest of this pantry challenge with us. But in the meantime, it's time to finish up this bread. As you can see, doubling in size was definitely not a problem. This came out to almost 4,000 grams of dough. It was just slightly under. I did end up going back to weigh it just so that I made sure to get all of the loaves the same size. That's a little bit where my kind of controlling comes in. I can't just wing it. I want to know that every pan has the exact same amount of dough in it. I want to make sure that they all bake at the same time. So all of those things kind of play into it here. Now it's time to get them shaped. And I will admit, I have not rolled up a loaf in about 6 months probably. So I was a little rusty on my shaping and I tried a few different techniques as I went. I will get better next time. They did end up falling a little bit in the center, or I should say some of them did. But anytime you're working on perfecting a skill, things like that are going to happen. And that's just part of it. Nobody has ever complained at my house because the center of their dough was a little bit caved in. It was not underbaked. It came out absolutely delicious. So just get involved and give it a try. You know, the worst that's going to happen is your bread's totally going to flop. And in that case, you can still turn it into croutons and they will be absolutely delicious. And you can evaluate what went wrong and start over. For me, I did not give some of these loaves enough tension on top. My countertop is a leathered granite, which means it's not a super smooth texture. That makes it kind of hard to shape dough on it. And I should use a cutting board to do that. And in the future, I probably will, because then I will be able to create the tension that I'm looking for and not have the same problem with it getting stuck to my countertop. And I will be able to create the tension that I'm looking for. Now, while those go through their final rise, the pizza was done. So I am pulling out and plating up pizza for everyone that is here. A couple of the guys are off at basketball practice at the time, but the pizza and cheese sticks was a huge hit. We had leftovers a time or two since. I am not recording when we're eating leftovers for you. I showed it all to you the first time, so you're only going to see probably around 5 meals per week. We do have leftovers on those off meals and for lunch most of the time. So I'm leaving those out just for the sake of showing you actual really cool content without saying, hey, I warmed this up for 3 minutes in the air fryer. While Wonder Woman keeps a close, watchful eye on the bread that she helped me make, I want to remind you quickly to make sure you subscribe to my channel and the Vego Garden Academy here on YouTube, to like this video and comment below with your favorite gardening tip or how you'd use that seedling tray if you're interested in winning your very own Vego seed starting bundle. Then if you are very new to gardening, this is an amazing set for a beginning gardener and will save you a lot of the hassle that I had when I started out potting in red solo cups. Now, if you notice here, I am taking the temperature of my bread. If you are new to baking, this probably seems really odd, but that's one way to make sure that the inside is not going to be doughy or gooey at all. and you get a beautifully baked loaf. So the temperature is at least 190. I'm taking them all out and I'm gonna let them cool. I do go ahead and pop them completely out of the bread pans and put them on a cooling rack. I'm laying them on the side so they don't cave in on top, or cave in anymore, I should say. This just takes all the pressure right off the top of the loaf and keeps it from compressing. So these fall out perfectly when I'm using these stoneware pans. That's one of the reasons that I love them, on top of the fact that they're not nonstick, and I hate that, but that's a story for another day. Thank you for sharing week 1 of the Pantry Challenge with me. I hope you have fun and best of luck in the drawing. I'll see you back next week for a couple tricks on how I make awesome tacos, as well as show you my favorite way to make steak.